Lidia Bastianich has spent 50 years running restaurants, 26 years teaching on television, and, since 1990, she has written 16 cookbooks. One food that has informed all of her endeavors has now become the subject of her latest cookbook. Of course, we are talking about pasta. Lydia's The Art of Pasta covers all the bases: its history and regional variations in Italy, how to make your own fresh pasta, selecting the best dried brands, and how to cook, serve, and store it. Pasta is my favorite food, and I'm thrilled to have the chance to speak about it with Lydia during this Newsday live conversation. Please welcome Lidia Bastianich.
Thank you. Lydia,
Buonasera.
it is so nice to be here with you. I think pasta is my favorite food. Usually I do more research when I'm thinking about talking to you and what we're going to talk about, but I have so many questions just about pasta.
Okay.
I feel like this evening isn't big enough to contain us. But I was thinking about how when I see a vegetable in the market that looks beautiful, the first thing I think is, how am I going to do it with pasta? Like, I don't think, what am I going to do with it? I think, what pasta dish can I make with it? Because pasta makes everything better. And you have sort of a scientific bent. And I wondered, do you know why that is? Why is everything better when it's with pasta?
I think, just pasta is comfort. But they say that carbohydrates, a little bit like sugar, are comfort foods. They give you that kind of energy, immediate satisfaction. But to me, actually, pasta, when it caresses me, kind of. But then I was raised. And this is my 18th book. Now, Erica and I go back, way back. And we've done a few of these and interviews and whatever. So it's really nice and comfortable to talk to you. But, my 18th book, and I said, am I going to write another book? How many, whatever. Because I must say that whatever I do, it's not recipes that are mine, that I invent. It is part of the Italian heritage. And that is, I felt, my kind of, in this world of food, my position. I was born in Italy, have that great heritage to me, the blessing. And then I came a young immigrant to America, and I was adopted by America, and I feel very American. So my goal was, can I, once I sort of settled and saw a little bit of the food or whatever, says, how can I transport my food experience, my flavors and whatever, and bring them to America? So through the restaurants, then through the books, then the television, I was blessed to have a great platform. And the 18 books always had recipes that belonged to Italy. I modified them. So when this comes, says, why did you do a pasta book now? Well, pasta was loved. Then it kind of fell out of favor for a while.
That was crazy talk.
Yeah, but it did. But now I feel this energy back. I get so many questions, so many emails, just like you're saying. People are loving pasta. It is, for us Italian, it is at the basis of our eating. And, it's economically makes sense, flavorful makes sense, easy to make. You can complicate a pasta, but you can make it very easy. That vegetable, I don't know which vegetables, but add a little bit of garlic and oil, peperoncino, and you have something to eat.
I had a beautiful head of broccoli, with the stem still attached. I cut it up, and I brought a pot of water to boil, and I boiled it, and then some of it I put in the garlic and oil, and some of it I pureed. It was heaven.
Absolutely. With pasta, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you cook the broccoli. what I would have done, and I tell you in the book, is that, you know, you put the pasta in, you clean the broccoli, you put the pasta in the water. Now, it depends how long the pasta takes to cook. You know, if you have the rigatoni or whatever, a little longer, and halfway through you throw your broccoli into the pasta, in the water with the pasta, and you have it all together. It's even easier. And
I could have done that, but I've been on this kick lately where I take half the veg and I put it and I saute it. The other half I puree with an immersion blender.
Mm-hmm.
So I've sort of got the sauce from the broccoli with the broccoli.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But also, you know, as a base of flavoring, you know, whether you do mashed potatoes or something, even instead of a sauce,
Yeah.
Vegetables can be turned into a great sauce with a little blender or whatever you decide.
You know, one thing you just said called to mind that you said you don't invent these recipes. And I think that's something Americans don't always appreciate, that in Italy there's like a canon of recipes. And no one spends a lot of time trying to invent a new one. There are just so many, and they're already so good that, you know, the question is to find them, to perfect them, and not to say, oh, you know, no one's done, you know, peas and halibut.
But you know, it's it's so easy in the Italian culture. You know a technique, again, garlic and oil base. You can go anywhere with that. It doesn't have to be a per se recipe, but someplace in Italy somebody has done that,
Right.
because so even as individuals now and today, you find something beautiful at the market, you can turn it into a great pasta dish, a basic recipe of pasta you follow, and I think that's the case, you know. And in Italy, all over Italy, that's what happens. It happens with soups. It happens with a lot of things. This kind of improvisation of knowing your basic techniques, understanding your basic kind of marriage of flavors, and then you proceed and you kind of almost invent a recipe, but don't fool yourself. Somebody's done it before.
You know, right now on Long Island, there's like this vogue for restaurants that make their own pasta. And I would really like to dig in to fresh versus dried pasta, because to me, having a box of really good spaghetti in my pantry, I wouldn't give it up for anything. I don't view it as an inferior product. Can you talk about the difference between fresh pasta and dried pasta? And is one better, or?
I love them both equally, although I am from the north, and if you're looking at Italy, Italy is divided by pasta. Dry pasta is basically in the south, and fresh pasta is basically in the north. And that's a question of topography and climate. The wheat in the north is a soft wheat, the white wheat, and hence doesn't have too much gluten in it. Whereas in the south, they have the semolina, the semola, which is a hard wheat, high in gluten, and it's great, it's resilient, and it sort of blends well, the gluten's form. So dry pasta is only semolina flour and water, nothing else.
Now, so it's a hard wheat. It needs to be kneaded by machine usually.
Right.
And this is pasta that generally is formed by being extruded, pushed through a hole.
Because it's dense mass, a dense mass.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just semolina, and semolina varies also. There's different kind of percentages of gluten again, which is protein. So if you work the glutens and you kind of just a little bit of water, you develop kind of strands,
Right.
And that's what gives the resilience to dry pasta. To mix it, because initially it used to be the people there made pasta by hand, and you go down orecchiette and all that, it's still kind of made by hand, and it is not dry, it is sometimes used fresh as well. But yes, dry pasta is semolina, water, mixed well a nice dry, almost crumbly still. Then it is pushed and extruded. It has to be extruded at slow, not too much pressure. You can't build heat. It has to go cold out. And then goes through a cutting, a die. And the dies used to be of wood, which was ideal because what you want pasta, whether it's fresh or dry, you want it to have a rough surface. You don't want a smooth, shiny pasta because that's where the sauce adheres to. And also texturally, it gives you a good sensation, a good mouthfeel. So this dough is pushed through slowly, not building the heat, very slowly. It encounters whatever die you decide to put, and it falls out, of course. The next most important process is the drying of it.
I just want to, if you guys ever want to see something absolutely mesmerizing, just go on YouTube and look for pasta extrusion videos, because you'll see there'll be a tiny hole and spaghetti will come out. Mm-hmm. There'll be like an oval hole, linguine will come out. There's like a big hole, you'll see rigatoni come out. Yeah. And as it comes out, they just cut, and that determines how long it is.
But the importance in the drying process is, and sometimes because you want the pasta to dry from the inside out. Mm-hmm. If the pasta dries from the outside, then the inside remains always chewy. And I'm sure that you had experiences where the pasta inside was kind of chewy. So it wasn't dried properly. And that's why around Naples, the dry pasta really took hold because they used to dry it out. There's the sea there, the sort of the wind of the sea, and the humidity of the sea kept the pasta kind of still humid on the outside so it could dry. And ultimately, so when you buy dry pasta, you want it to be rough. You don't want a shiny pasta. Nice yellow color signifies that it's a good semolina. Although some pastas, you can look the percentage of gluten protein that it has. And you want the pasta to be all uniform in color. You don't want to see that kind of backbone in it. And of course, you don't want it chipped, or you don't want it floury. Now,
I think where you were going, because you mentioned the original wooden dies,
yeah.
And now you're looking for a bronze die.
Well, they went on to stainless steel,
and
which
Teflon.
Gave the smoothness, and realized that that's not what the best, and they returned to a rough, and bronze is kind of a rough finish, and now they use bronze dies, and it's
so
fine.
When you're at the store and you see a pasta, it's slow dried, you see the rough surface, it's a bronze, it's been extruded through a bronze die. These are going to be a little bit more expensive. But they're worth it.
Yeah. And in Italy they're very conscious about the nutritional values, no MGOs or any of that. So buying a good Italian pasta, I think it's worth the few cents that it costs more, although now with this new tariffs, I'm not so sure what's going to happen. So fresh pasta, on the other hand, is soft wheat, white wheat, and there you build up. You need the eggs to give it sort of the protein and the fat to hold the flour together, salt, a little bit of olive oil, yes and no, and usually, and that can vary. You go to Bologna, which is the capital of sfoglia, or the thing, is where they use only the egg yolks, and as much flour as that will take, that's the perfect pasta. And that's all about the pasta. But as you travel on, the ratio of eggs and flour can be up to you.
I loved in your book, you had like a pasta, when you're making pasta with some eggs, pasta with a lot of eggs.
Exactly. But the freedom that you can, if you're conscious, you can make also pasta with just flour and water. A little bit of oil, flour, and water. And you have to work it a little more because you need the glutens to tie it in, but you could. And so up north, where I come from, northeast, north of Venice, all the way up, my grandmother, we had chickens and whatever, but 1-2 eggs for a family for 8 portions of pasta, no problem. And a little bit of oil, salt, and you needed to knead it well so you can develop the glutens, the somewhat glutens that was in that flour into a dough. It is a much softer dough.
And this is a dough that instead of being extruded, you would roll into a sheet.
You would roll.
The
Fresh
sfoglia.
dough, fresh pasta dough, mostly it's always rolled. You would roll it, or you can have the machine to roll it, or whatever. But the pasta with the soft, it's very porous and it cooks quickly because it's fresh. Can you dry fresh pasta? Yes, you could dry it, but you'll get that effect that it dries on the outside before on the inside. So you will most likely sense that, so you'll have to cook it a little longer. But, it cooks very quickly, and it's very porous and absorbs a lot the sauce. So that's why, you have a nice sauce or ragu of meat, the bolognese, and a fresh pasta, tagliatelle or pappardelle. It kind of really envelops all, and it really is a good experience.
And all of these long shapes, it's just a question of how big the slice is. You've got a lasagna about this wide, pappardelle, tagliatelle.
Yeah.
It's just
I go through some of the sizes. Dry pasta, there's more than 120 different shapes, and they're always inventing some new ones now. We're always inventing something, but there is a lot. And fresh pasta is endless. What you can shape. I mean, yes, the lasagna, the flats. Then you can shorten the pappardelle, then tagliatelle, and so on down the long one. And then, of course, you can take
the
those
filled pastas.
and then shape them. Turn them into garganelli. Which is garganelli, you can buy them dry, but fresh we used to call them fusi actually. Pastice locally, it's the soft flour pasta cut into diamonds, sort of like a pappardelle, and then cut into diamonds. And that was usually because certain shapes go better with certain sauces. That was usually with seafood, pastice with seafood. And then the fusi, which are the garganelle, which you would take the same diamond kind of cut, and you would unite two ends with leaving a hole in the middle, almost like a penne.
Yeah.
And that would go with meat sauces, the chicken. And that was usually the Sunday. And we all used to sit around with grandma and the little kids. And the little girls were appreciated because they had small fingers and they can keep the hole in the pasta when they, yeah. So we would do that all morning, Sunday and whatever before, and sometimes even on Saturday.
But now we're seeing a lot of, on Long Island, I assume, and I know in the city too, places that make their own fresh dried pasta, like our own fresh spaghetti, our own fresh rigatoni. They buy a machine, they put in the flour, they put in the water, and they extrude it right there. That's what I don't, it's sort of a hybrid, like I don't,
is
there an advantage to having it be fresh?
I don't have it. I don't use it because you can never get the mixture. You have to have the right flour, of course, but you can get semolina flour from Italy now. It's imported. And the drying process is the one, and the extruding, how fast and how much pressure is in there. It's part of. So I think a store-bought dry pasta is much better. But I'm sure those of you that have the extruder at home will get that sensation that I'm saying, that chewiness that somehow never goes away in the middle of the pasta, whether you have a pappardelle, spaghetti or whatever. So I either fresh pasta, and I go where you're talking about now. The restaurants have this fresh pasta mystique. Fresh pasta is so simple to make. I can't emphasize enough, how simple it is. You put the right amount, you put it in the processor. I mean, yes, you can make a well, you can put the eggs, you can mix and whatever, and it's fun, it's romantic, it's whatever, and I love it. And you get all your hands dirty, you get the kids involved, but you can put the whole thing in a food processor and you get yourself a nice pasta. Once the whole thing accumulates around the canister of the processor, usually the dough is done. Don't over mix it, because if it builds heat, then you're almost cooking the pasta. That's no good. But pasta is so easy to make. So you make it, you take it out of the blender, you let it rest a little bit, and then you shape it, roll it in whatever, or you have the roller, whatever you'd like.
I always found the most challenging thing about making fresh pasta. I remember making it when I first came to New York. I was living in a studio apartment. There weren't enough places to put it. Like it needs to.
It does.
It needs to sit for a while. I had it on my bed. I had it on the coffee
Grandma
table.
always kept it on the bed.
Really?
Nothing new. Nothing new.
Now you organize this book though not by fresh or dried, but by what's going on the pasta with the pasta. How did you even come up with? How did you know that's the way you wanted to organize it?
Because I know that people out there. First of all, I am a chef and all that, but I love to communicate and I love to teach and I love to transport. I have been blessed to get many people to mentor me, to learn, to go on, and it is not. I feel it's not mine to keep. I need to. Yes, my family. Yes, my children, and so on down the line. And again, I say, writing of the books does it. Being on television does it, and it gives me great satisfaction to be able to kind of transport that easiness of Italian cooking to the audience.
Yeah.
So I think the way that the pasta is the way that they would think of approaching, pasta with tomato sauce, then pasta with seafood sauce, then pasta with vegetables, then baked pasta, pasta with cheeses, pasta in soups. I even go into gnocchi. So pasta is...
You even go into pasta salad, which surprised me.
Yeah, pasta salad is not very popular in Italy. It hasn't been. Now it's okay, summertime, so because it's getting hot, the summers are getting hot.
Okay. How often do you eat pasta?
Oh, just about in one form or another. Not, I wouldn't say every day, but often.
Yeah.
Whether it's in soup, now ever more.
Yeah.
And I know my brother, my sister-in-law were over this weekend, and my brother loves his pasta fagioli. So we had, like every husband says, oh, but my wife, she doesn't make it the way Grandma used to make it. I said, okay, let's have a lesson in pasta fagioli. Yeah. So we started all together, we made it, and in it, of course, we put ditalini.
Yeah.
And so I had some left over, and today I had for lunch, pasta fagioli and ditalini.
So it occurred to me that your pasta journey is sort of in three parts. There would have been the pasta that you grew up with in Italy, which was just your region. I mean, you weren't, Lidia back then. You were just, you were Lidia, but you were eating the pasta that people ate where you were. And then you came to New York, and you must have started to see pasta dishes you'd never seen in Italy. And then at some point, you started going back to Italy, but going all over Italy to places you'd never been before you emigrated.
Exactly. Well, I felt that it was, that I just needed to really know what I was preaching, what I was talking, what I was cooking. And just to go back, yes, when I came to America, and I was young, I was 12, so we did at home cook, made the homemade pasta, but I was encountered with the Italian-American cuisine, completely different not completely, there's the roots are there, but it's different. And so pasta that I had, even the lasagna. The lasagna, if we make it up north, it's much more with a little bechamel, with a little bolognese, not as red. You go down to Naples and Sicily, ricotta, some of them put a little meatball sausages and whatever. So it was quite different. But
yeah, and you actually put both recipes in the book.
Yeah, I did. I combined some of them because, again, I want them to cook. I want them to feel comfortable. It's not me kind of preaching it's what can you really make, and sort of guide you, be a mentor in guiding someone to cook pasta, but you got to know the rules, you know. I just had an interview today, and the question was about, you know, what would you want the readers to know about? You know, the one thing I think that I would really emphasize is the texture, the al dente. You know, we all like the flavors of pasta, but the pasta, don't oversauce it. That's not just enough sauce to coat everything. You always have sauce on the side, put it. And the al dente element, you know, the bite. I think, you know, we enjoy our food with all our senses. You know, looking at it has to look nice, beautiful, inviting. You begin to salivate. The olfactory is very important. The flavor. But the tactile element, you know, the crunchiness. What would celery be if it's not crunchy? So maybe you're not alert, but there's this element to enjoying pasta also. The Italians like their al dente, that little bite. Now, it is the texture, the sensation, when you're biting into something and you have resistance, you're building resistance in your teeth, in your mouth, you're sensitizing. You know, this is resistance, your nerves are more sensitized, the blood kind of falls. So you are really feeling a sensation in tasting. But also, there's a nutritional value in al dente pasta. You know, if you cook pasta and it's, you know, overcooked or whatever, you eat it, you ingest it, and right away in your stomach it is broken down into sugars and whatever, and it is absorbed. And your insulin secretion jumps up. But pasta al dente slowly breaks down in your stomach. So therefore, you're digesting it a longer period of time. It makes you feel fuller, and the starches that come out change into sugar at much slower rates. So also nutritionally, it does make sense. So how the Italian old people figured it out way back, I don't know, but it works.
You know, I was once complaining to an Italian chef about how my least favorite shape is farfalle, because I can never get I feel like I never get it done correctly, because by the time, you know, this part is done, that little fold in the middle isn't. And he said that's a feature, not a bug, that farfalle offers you two textures, one slightly softer and one slightly chewier, which had never occurred to me before.
Yeah. And the shapes also play a role in your tactile sensibility in eating pasta.
Can you tell everyone to make sure they put enough salt in their pasta cooking water?
Yeah, it's important. I mean, if you don't have
I see people put literally a pinch. That does nothing.
You know, it's somebody says like the sea. That's a little too salty.
Too salty for me.
Yeah, that's a little too salty. But it has to have a bit of salinity to balance, because if you don't put it in the water, it never permeates the pasta, and you can put all the salt you want. Once you have the pasta out, it will never will compensate. So you have to put a little bit, and you know, I just taste it. Take the back of your wooden spoon, put it in the water, and taste it.
Yeah. You should be able to perceive some salt.
Saltiness, not over salt, the saltiness. And of course, if you have over salted it, just add some more water. Never put oil in the pasta water.
I feel like people are finally stopping doing that.
Yeah, I think they are. I think. Yeah.
I think you've made some headway.
I from way back. Another element that I think, you know, I started way back, and we were talking, is about using the pasta water. That's why the saltiness is very important. It's using the pasta water in kind of pulling together your dish, your pasta. You know, if you, in Italy, it's a tradition, and I like most of the pastas to sort of undercook them even more, a little bit al dente than we like, finish cooking it in the sauce so that the pasta absorbs. Now, not the whole thing in the pot of sauce. In a little pan, you drain or whisk your pasta, you put some of the sauce, and you let it slowly finish cooking to the texture that you like, al dente, I would say, and then you have sauce on the side, and you can finish it at the side.
I bet that there are a lot of people in this room who finish their pasta in the skillet with the sauce and add pasta cooking water because they saw you do it.
Well,
am I right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
pasta water does a few things. It's if you the pasta has absorbed a lot of the sauce. You don't have too much of the sauce. It is somebody's not ready to eat. It's making the pasta wait 5 minutes. It's beginning to. It's all those little things. It cures all those elements without adding. One would go for butter. One would go for more sauce. You don't want to over sauce it. You don't want to over oil it or butter it. Pasta water does the tricks a little bit at a time.
Do you have any broad guidelines for which sauces go with which pastas?
Well, it's the texture of the sauce and the shape of the pasta. You have now a bolognese sauce, which has this little, goes great if you have rigatoni or whatever, and it goes into the nooks and crannies.
So any sauce with little nubbins,
Right.
you want to catch them with the macaroni.
Exactly, so that you don't have all the things left on the bottom of the plate, that you're taking it up with the. But then there's the long pasta, like tomato sauce, spaghetti, the classical. So what does that do? Is you want to coat the whole strand of pasta, not soaking it in, but coating it as you're cooking it and whatever, and then of course finishing up with the oil, a little bit of cheese, and then you can always put a little tablespoon or two of sauce on top. So it's depends on the sauce. Do not over sauce it, and the shape and the pasta you can have a nice play, And there's some new shapes. There's a lot of. Don't be afraid to sort of be adventurous with new shapes. People will say, "Oh, gee, what's this?" And it has a nice new mouthfeel.
Do you have a favorite shape? Like, if you were confined to one shape for the rest of your life.
Hard pasta is spaghetti.
I'm so there with you. Yeah, that's my desert island pasta.
Yeah. That I can work with the spaghetti, picking up anything I have in the plate. I twist it, I turn, the meat goes in. So, but it's a nice feeling of when it sort of unwinds in your mouth. All of that for me is a sensation that spaghetti.
Did you eat spaghetti growing up?
Spaghetti was mostly in south of Italy when I grew up. I remember the spaghetti was sold, and it used to be in the store. We used to go with my mother, but you made things at home. You didn't go out and buy pasta if you could make it at home but it was usually in a box. And long spaghetti, and it also had the round thing because it was double, because it was hung actually on like broomsticks.
I have bought that super long spaghetti that has the bend. It never occurred to me that's like the broomstick it was hung on.
Exactly. And we used to buy it, and a kilo, half a kilo, and they just picked it up, put a piece of paper around it, and you carried it home like this, so you wouldn't break it. I remember carrying and we ate spaghetti. I remember my brother and I, we were born at the end of the war, and my mother, she always told this story. She was expecting me, and my brother was 3 years old or whatever, and the sirens went off that they were bombarding the city, and so she had this spaghetti box, wooden, they used to be wooden, and it says fragile. So she had a little blanket. She put my brother in the fragile box and ran to the tunnel for protection. So we always tell him he was very fragile.
Yeah. So it sounds like when you were growing up, it was like a special imported treat from that you couldn't make at home. It was like, oh, from
it
the
wasn't.
store.
We couldn't make it, and it wasn't made in the north of Italy. It had to come, so it was a special treat. And then most of the things that we ate, either grandma produced it. We had all the animals, chicken, ducks, rabbits, goats, pigs. We had all of that, and the garden.
Yeah.
So that's what you ate. So you went to buy salt was the thing, the one thing that we all, I remember what else, and pepper, black pepper.
Salt and pepper.
Yeah, black pepper, and black pepper is not indigenous to that. The black pepper was introduced to Italy with the Venetians, the Serenissima, when the spice trade to the Orient, because black pepper is in the equatorial belt, and Italy is in the Mediterranean belt. So we don't. So I remember we used to go, and it was precious thing to buy, pepper and salt.
I hope we don't lose this, because you can read books from the last couple of hundred, you can read books that are 1,000 years old where salt and pepper are important to them. Salt is something you don't produce at home, you have to buy it. The Romans used to pay their soldiers in salt, right? Mm-hmm. The salary, the salaria. Mm-hmm. And pepper also coming from the Indies, it's so easy to buy everything now, and we lose that connection with all our forebears who wanted salt and who wanted something to spice up their food.
Yeah. Well, salt was always kind of governmental control, because the government or whatever owned the land, and salt was either from the land or the sea. It was made. So basically, from digging in the mines,
yeah,
or the sea. So it was a governmental monopoly, if you will, for many centuries.
Yeah. And then the tomatoes didn't reach Italy until the 16th century, right? After Columbus.
After Columbus. But the Italians have Italy is smaller than California. It has the largest variety of vegetables and fruits than any other country. I think because the country is small, it is surrounded by oceans on most of the sides. It has two main chains, the Alps and the Apennines, that come down. So within the peninsula, there's so many microclimates. And within these microclimates, the Italians had to make it happen, grow whatever grows best there. That's why the regionality and different Italian regions cook different things. Broccoli di rape, we didn't have it up north. It was basically in the south, because it's in the chicory family. It's wild. We had dandelion. I used to go pick with my grandmother dandelion. We had our own rendition of chicory, but because the climate was different and it grew better there. Sicily with its eggplants and so on.
Yeah, there's lemons growing everywhere, and the wild fennel. So I'm going to open it up to questions in a moment, but I want to ask you one thing, because I bet if I don't, someone else is going to, which is, what about gluten-free pasta?
Well, gluten-free seems to, really come out these days, and I think maybe because we ate too much or whatever. But it's not. It's in Italy there is, actually, and it's not gluten-free. There is people that have this intolerance, and it's considered an actual sickness. But I think it's less. It depends a lot on the flour, on the starch, on the grains, and all of that. Is pasta as good? In the northern Italy, pasta pizzoccheri are made out of, it could be whole wheat, it could be buckwheat, it could be in the south, pasta is made out of ceci flour. And so, yes, pasta could be made out of different flours, the texture, the ability to shape it and how long, that's because it doesn't have the glutens and whatever, so it works differently. But yes, you can make, does it taste good? Now they have a lot of substitutes for flour, gluten-free flour, and it's okay, it's okay.
I've had, there's a brand called Le Veneziane. It's a corn pasta. And I was amazed at how good it was. Didn't taste like corn, and it actually had a pretty good texture.
Yeah,
But I thank God I can eat gluten.
yeah, corn flour, and sometimes you mix those. I mean, we up north, you know, the polenta is our kind of big starch, if you will,
Right.
And so yeah, you know, thin slice cooked polenta, and then you let it dry very thin, and then you sort of reconstitute it.
Okay,
There's also a pasta called mlinzi, and it's a pasta that's
What's it
if
called?
you know mlinzi, mlinzi. But what it is so pasta came to Italy from the Arab world through Sicily, and it was Itria. They even call now pasta in Sicily Itria. So what was that the nomads, you know, in the Arab and North African whatever, had milled whatever grains, made a paste, and made kind of a dough-like, and they would shape it, and they would put it on rocks to dry, and then they would take it with them on their nomadic journeys. When they settled, they would put the water to boil, break this crispy pasta in the water, reconstitute it, and dress it with whatever they had. They had sheep's milk, sheep's cheese, and whatever. And so the origin of pasta go back in that way, and it entered Itria. In Sicily, they still call pasta Itria. And that's the way it goes. So this mlinzi, way up north where it is a pasta, a dough made out of just flour and water, not unlike, and it is toasted in the, made a sheet, you toast it in the oven, gets nice and toasty, not over toasted, and you have it there. And then when you're ready, you have boiling water, salt it, you break it into pieces, all different pieces, you reconstitute it, and up north it is used a lot with, I remember for the holidays, with roasted duck. Mm. So can you imagine, you know, the roasted duck, the meat, the flavors, the fattiness of it. Today we're all into, but this pasta that has, and it retains, it gets soft, and sometimes it retains a little bit of crunchiness, and it's so, you know, it's still out there. There's a lot to learn yet about pasta. I mean, every major culture has some form of pasta.
When making sauce with canned San Marzano tomatoes, do you take the seeds out?
Do I take the seeds out when I make sauce with San Marzano tomato? Not really. But, you know, it makes for a more elegant sauce. So if you buy the canned San Marzano, they're usually, the skin is peeled, and you have the juice, you take that, and then you have the whole plum tomato. At that point, you could squeeze it in your hand over a sieve, and you retain the pulp. You put it back in the juice, but the seeds get caught, and if there's any pulp, you press it through, and you use that. So absolutely. So if you have the time or whatever, you can do it that way.
Other than your mother and your grandmother, what other influential person has aided in your cooking career?
It's a whole kind of life of, and I certainly didn't think that I was going to be a chef or cook. It became sort of, so certainly my grandmother, all the aunts, and you know, you lived in a cluster in a courtyard, and all the great aunts were, so everybody taught you something. I had a great aunt called Maria, and she was a great forager. And she was also kind of botanically kind of gifted. She would have me pick chamomile, dry the chamomile flower, do the bay leaves, dry them. So you learned something from everybody. And then because I was born in a part of Italy that became communist Yugoslavia. And so it was difficult. So we escaped back into Italy. And when we escaped back into Italy, we had family on that side too. But we were refugees in a sense that, we didn't have the papers, we just escaped. And we were in a refugee camp for 2 years. So working to help, I would work in the kitchen, just peeled apple. But also, I was going to school in a convent with nuns. And again, to subsidize, to help a little bit, I ended up in the kitchen, and I would help with them. So along the way, there was somebody guiding my path. When I came to America, my interest was really the sciences. That's why kind of, and we needed money. We were immigrants, and so one of my first jobs, I cooked home because my mother worked late. My mother was a teacher, but she of course she didn't know the language, so she worked in a factory sewing. Every Italian woman knows how to sew a little bit, and she would come late, work overtime to make money, and she would set everything up for me to cook. But by then already I know, the beans were soaking, put this, put that, and whatever, and then she would come home and finish. At 14, right across the street, I lived in Astoria at that time, there was Walker's Bakery. Christopher Walken. The Walker's Bakery was a German bakery. So I went and applied for a job. I was 14. They didn't hire anybody until 16, but I was a big girl, so I lied a little bit. And I got a part-time job. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays I would work in the bakery. Started with making the boxes, folding, whatever, but inevitably I ended up always in the back, especially like on a Sunday, the bakers would be gone. I need a birthday cake, somebody would come, I would go in the back, do the, because I was curious, and I would dress the thing. And that's where also I met Christopher Walken. Some of you might see me with him. We're still friends. And he's a good cook. And then I went on to school in the city. I was going to Hunter College, and of course, you need a part-time job, work in restaurants.
Right.
And whether you're a waitress or a busboy or whatever you want to call it. But again, as things, sometimes, it was late, I need a spaghetti, garlic, and oil. I would go in the kitchen and, I did my best. And somehow, and then I met my husband who was in this industry. He was an immigrant also, but he was in the front of the house, as they called it. And he wanted to open a restaurant. And I said, okay, I'll help you. But, I was not a trained chef. That was 1971. We hired a chef, a local chef, and he was an Italian-American chef. Great, that's where I learned.
He was cooking a cuisine you really didn't know.
But in doing, opening a restaurant, doing research, that's what everybody was cooking. That's what people liked.
Right.
So it was okay. So I realized how much I had to learn, so I actually went in the kitchen and became his sous chef. Learned the Italian and American cuisine, and then slowly began to, but Italy is different. We would go back, travel to Italy back and forth for a vacation, and I was curious. And that's when Lidia opened, right, in 81. I became the chef because of the 10 years and because, I went back to Italy. And going back to Italy, I worked with chefs. I knew exactly what I needed to learn and whatever. And I still to this day go around Italy. But there at Lidia, I decided, okay, the Italian-American cuisine, but I'm going to do the regional Italian cuisine. And I think that's what really kind of sort of, what is this young woman cooking? What kind of Italian food? And that was 1981.
Yeah, well, it was a revolutionary thing to do. And in such a beautiful, it wasn't some little out-of-the-way place. It was, right there on the Upper East Side.
Exactly. It was, the big time, because we had initially opened in Queens, in Forest Hills, and we had in the 8, 9, 10 years, we had 2 restaurants, so we were doing well. And then they said, you need to, you belong in the city, and that's where. And then once there, the press, you know how you journalists are.
Yeah. We're
You're
relentless,
curious.
we're unoriginal.
You want to, but my big sort of thing, who came in was Julia Child and James Beard. And she had heard about this woman, chef, and she came in and she was interested in risotto. And risottos were not in the part of the Italian-American repertoire.
Right.
And so she loved it. We sort of connected. She came back the next week and she says, Lydia, you're going to teach me how to make risotto. And so I did. We became friends. And she invited me on her show. I did 2 episodes. It was a big success. The producer says, Lydia, you're pretty good. How about a show of your own? And she encouraged me. And that's how my things kind of evolved one after the other.
Wow, I like that. Okay.
Hi, what is your favorite comfort food?
Pasta. It is. And it just caresses me, I don't know. What is your favorite food?
Pasta.
All right.
I'm gluten-free, so
Oh, okay.
it's a little more difficult.
Have
Yeah.
you found a brand that you like?
Well, Trader Joe's has some good ones, but I just found one from Italy that I got. And I have a question. They say that if you go to Italy, you don't have the problems. Maybe that's the north versus the south.
No, it is. It's all of it because the genetics of the grain there is it has less of this kind of. I don't know. Maybe it's worked less. Maybe it's more natural. But it is true. It does work because people that go there, almost everybody. I can eat and I still feel light in Italy and whatever, and it is. I think it's the product itself, the genetics of the wheat, ultimately the flour and so on.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to say to Lydia that I've been watching you forever.
Thank you.
And everything I know, I learned it from you.
Thank you.
Also, when are you going to open up a restaurant on Long Island?
I was in Long Island, well, not on Long Island, but I was in Queens for 10 years, from 71 to almost 81. And then I went to New York, Manhattan. And after 50 years, I kind of, COVID came in and we had a few restaurants or whatever. And I said, COVID, then they made us close all the restaurants during COVID.
Yes.
So when it came time to reopen, by then, I was 50 years in the industry. I said, if the kids took over, but I think, because I was thinking, okay, so it's a tough industry. I mean, I have 2 titanium knees and so on. My kids took over. Now my son and my daughter do a lot of the restaurants, Becco, I don't know, and Italy and Antico Vinaio and all of that. So they have, different things. And I decided that maybe I'll continue with the TV, I'll continue with teaching the books. But after 50 years, I sort of subsided.
I think that's smart.
Hi, Lydia. Could you tell me the difference between 00 flour and regular, let's say, Pillsbury flour to make pasta? Does it make a difference?
It's the milling. It's a selection of grain too, but it is the milling, the fineness. It's like almost like powder, like talcum, versus a little coarser. If you need gluten and if you need kind of substance in what you're making, then the double zero doesn't work because you want the roughness. If you want a nice silky pasta and whatever, and desserts that kind of, sponge cakes with the rise, so you want the double zero. And pizza also, double zero is good for pizza because pizza, what you want, pizza is simple again. It's flour, it's a little bit of oil, warm, and yeast, and that's it. It's a little bit of salt. But you need the yeast, you need the dough to be, a lot of you that make pizza dough, make it wet, because the dough needs to be wet a little bit, sticky a little bit, and it needs to puff up, as it because as it bakes, the water, the wetness in there evaporates, and it does push up. It does form those bubbles and all of that, and double zero allows for all of that to happen.
I've noticed, like, over the decades, as more things become available in this country, recipes tend to call for them. Like, 30 years ago, there was a pasta recipe, it would call for all-purpose flour and eggs, and it worked fine. You should never feel, well, if I can't get the Caputo double zero flour, I'm not going to do it, because, the recipes just sort of keep pace with everything that's available. But, if you can't find double zero flour, you'd probably be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't just go in there. Yeah, you need to have some sort of a guideline, whether it's a recipe or a technique or whatever. And, it won't work always the first time, so you got to, like everything else, you got to do it again. And you'll be surprised how your time in the kitchen will help you along, will kind of, you will recognize, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. And, it's in there, and don't be afraid to bring it out and to follow and trust yourself.
Hi, Lydia. I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit about the different olive oils that you might use with different pasta dishes.
Okay. Olive oils. Okay, so we need to go to the base. So olive oil is, of course, made of, traditionally it was made of three different kind of olives. One was that produced the maximum amount, one gave it flavor, and one gave it viscosity. So whatever, and each region are different olives that are better than others and that have different qualities. So the harvest of the olive happens now, it just happened, I know it's happening in Italy, is that the olives, they're all green. Just when they mature, they become black. There's no black olive or green olive. The process of maturity, I remember that I used to go on the olive tree for my grandmother to when we were harvest, and she would wait for the olives to be more on the black side because they yielded more oil because they matured better. But in that process, they lost some of the flavor. Oh. So what today is ideal is that the olive, when it's green and it begins to be speckled, kind of has black speckles, that's when it's ideal to harvest, to get the most flavor out of that olive. So you harvest the olives, make sure that it's the leaves are not there, that it's a healthy olive, and it has to be made into olives within 24 maximum a day and a half or two, because what happens is that the olives is churned and mashed into a pulp, and then that pulp is traditionally squeezed. Today they use the centrifugal system, so that different liquids come out at different revolutions. And so first of all, as this pulp is into the centrifuge, water vegetation comes out, and then the oil comes out, and then the solids remain. The oil is, why is olive oil good for us? Because it has an unstable molecule. And this unstable molecule, a hydrogen that's looking for an oxygen to stabilize. And that's why it is in our body, it's good. It collects the oxygen supposedly and takes it. But also if you have it out, it oxidizes quickly. So olive oil, when it squeezed the olives and all that, produced the olives right away because it would oxidize and become rancid. And once it is produced, it needs to be bottled, kept away from oxygen as soon as possible. You have olive oil that has a little sediment, and some people like it, but olive oil is sort of passed through a sieve and bottled immediately, and it is best used within 1 year. You don't want to keep it over. It should be for your home use. If you buy good olive oil, that's why you see it in small bottles. Yes, it costs a lot for a good olive oil, and it costs a lot because it is, all of those steps have been respected. First of all, the right olive, the right maturity, the picking. If the olives are shook and fall to the ground, they get nicked. And if they get nicked, you know, like you get a black and blue, so does the olive gets a bit oxidized in that part, and it imparts on the flavor ultimately. You cannot leave it more than, even the olives, once they've been collected, even if they're not mashed, they begin to create what's the green?
Mold?
Mold.
Mold.
So, you know, sometimes an olive can have that moldy kind of, absolutely, you have to do them right away, kind of bring them to the mill and have it done. So all of these steps are maybe why olive oil is expensive. How do you choose the flavor? Each region has, again, those microclimates, different temperatures. I'm not finished yet.
Oh, okay.
I want them to get it all.
Yeah.
And so if you go to the north, now there's more than 1,000 different species of olives, but if you go to the north, temperatures might much milder. You go to the lake region, from Lago di Como, the olive oil is very mellow, very mild. You go down Tuscany, the hills, the heat, the varietal, very peppery. They want that. If it's not peppery, the Tuscans don't coil the oil to be good. But that's a good element also because it has a lot of the phenolphthaleins, whatever they call them, that it's antioxidant. And then you go to the south, the oils usually are very vegetal because of the nature of the climate. So, you know, what I can't give you one name, but these are the sort of how to, and it's tasting the oil. I think what you like. Try these different regions, buy it in small bottles, and the northern olive oil there is great for fish, for dressing, for light. Tuscan oil, very good for red meat, for soups. Sicilian oils, great for some pastas, lots of those vegetables, the eggplant or whatever. So they all kind of marry better with again, being within their kind of regional feeling. When you buy oil, you'll always most likely get it in dark bottles. Keep it sealed. If you buy a bigger bottle, put it in smaller so oxygen will not reach it. Keep it in a cool and dark place. Now,
I was just going to say that in the store, it's great if there's a harvest date at the very least, there should be an expiration date. If the bottle doesn't have an expiration date on it, they're not serious.
That's right. It's usually 1 year. You can use it beyond that, but usually it's best used within the 1 year.
I think that's going to do it for this evening. You,
Already?
that's what they
Thank
tell
you.
me. Thank you. And thank you. I cannot thank you enough. It's always so great to have you here. I feel like Long Island is Lydia country.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I make sure that I do a lot of things out on Long Island, whether it's fundraising or whatever, because I've lived most of my American life on this part of the land, if you will.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you very much for coming.